The Christmas season had arrived, and the streets of Calabar were filled with excitement. Mr. David had just returned from the city to spend the holidays with his family. His wife Clara and their 3 children were overjoyed to have him home. The village was decorated with colorful lights, and the smell of delicious food filled the air. Everyone was preparing for the celebrations, but unknown to them, danger lurked in the shadows. Mr. David's uncle, Patrick, was not happy about his return. For years, Patrick had been jealous of Mr. David's success. While Mr. David and his family lived comfortably in the city, Patrick and his children struggled to survive. His envy turned into deep hatred, and he came up with an evil plan. He decided that this Christmas would be Mr. David's last. Patrick's plan was wicked. He would poison the Christmas meal meant for Mr. David's family. If they died, he believed he would inherit their wealth and gain respect in the family. Carefully, he mixed poison into the food and put on a big smile. No one suspected a thing. On Christmas morning, Patrick invited the entire family to his house for a feast. Mr. David, trusting his uncle, accepted the invitation happily. The table was filled with all kinds of delicious food: jollof rice, roasted chicken, fried plantain, and more. Everyone's mouth watered at the sight of the meal. As the feast began, Clara felt uneasy. Something about Patrick's kindness seemed too good to be true. Her heart whispered a warning. She turned to her husband and said softly, "David, let's not eat just yet. Let others eat first." Mr. David was surprised by her words but decided to listen. They both smiled and thanked Patrick for the meal but said they would eat later. Patrick's children, unaware of their father's plan, eagerly began eating. They laughed and enjoyed the food, taking big bites. But within minutes the laughter stopped. Patrick's children clutched their stomachs in pain. Their faces twisted in agony as they groaned and cried. The joy of the celebration turned into panic. People rushed to help, but nothing could be done. Before long, Patrick's children collapsed. The village fell silent as the horror of the moment sank in. The children had eaten the poisoned food meant for Mr. David's family. Patrick's plan had backfired in the worst way possible. The tragedy shook the entire village. Everyone looked at Patrick with suspicion. His hands trembled as he realized what had happened. He had killed his own children. Tears ran down his face as he collapsed to the ground. Guilt filled his heart, but it was too late. Mr. David, though heartbroken, could not ignore what had happened. Something didn't feel right. Was this really just Patrick's doing? Or was there someone else involved? One evening, as Clara sat outside their home, she noticed an old woman passing by. It was Mama Ruth, a wise elder known for her sharp intuition. Clara greeted her warmly and invited her inside for tea. At first, Mama Ruth hesitated, but she saw something in Clara's eyes that made her stay. As they sipped their tea, Mama Ruth spoke in a low voice. "My dear, Patrick did not plan this alone." Clara's eyes widened. "What do you mean?" she asked. Mama Ruth looked around carefully before speaking. "The poison Patrick used, it is not easy to find. Someone else gave it to him. Someone who also hates your husband." Mr. David, who had just entered the room, listened carefully. "Do you know who?" he asked. Mama Ruth shook her head. "I do not know his name, but I have seen him. He is a man who stays on the outskirts of the village. Be careful, my children. The danger is not over." Clara's heart pounded. If Mama Ruth was right, someone else wanted her family dead. That night, Mr. David spoke to a few trusted friends in the village. One of them mentioned seeing a man in a tattered cloak near Patrick's house before Christmas. This made Mr. David even more cautious. He and Clara decided to keep their children close. The next evening, as Clara was locking the doors, a sudden knock echoed through the house. The sound sent chills down her spine. Mr. David slowly approached the door. "Who is there?" he called out. Silence. He opened the door carefully and looked around. No one was there. What's on the ground? A piece of paper lay under a small stone. He picked it up and stepped inside, his heart racing. As he unfolded the note, his hands shook. The words were written in shaky handwriting. "This isn't over. Watch your back." Fear filled the room. Whoever had written the note clearly meant harm. Who could it be? And what would they do next? Mr. David wasted no time. The next morning, he went to the local police and handed them the note. He explained everything that had happened. The officers promised to investigate but warned him to be extra careful. Meanwhile, Mr. Ocon, a trusted family friend, came to visit. David, he said in a serious tone, I overheard Patrick talking to someone at the market. They are planning something big. You need to be careful. Years passed and the village prepared for the New Year's celebration. But then, something strange happened. A man in a tattered coat was seen lurking near Mr. David's house. Clara, peering through the window, spotted him and immediately told her husband. Mr. David quietly called the police. The officers arrived swiftly and surrounded the area. The man, realizing he had been caught, tried to escape but was quickly captured. Under questioning, the man confessed everything. Patrick had hired him to sabotage Mr. David's car. The plan was to cause an accident while the family traveled to a New Year's service. When the police confronted Patrick, he denied everything. But when his accomplice spoke, the truth was revealed. Patrick had been planning for a long time to destroy Mr. David's family. His bitterness had turned into evil, and he had even involved other villagers in his plots. The trial was the talk of the village. Patrick and his accomplices were found guilty. The judge, disgusted by their wicked actions, sentenced them to life in prison. Justice had been served, but the pain of the betrayal remained. Mr. David and Clara, though relieved, felt the scars of the past. The village, once divided by envy, began to learn the value of kindness and unity. Over time, healing began. Mama Ruth became even closer to the family. The villagers, seeing how envy had nearly destroyed them, chose love over hatred. Mr. David and his family became stronger, knowing that faith, wisdom, and divine protection had saved them. In the end, the triumph proving that good always overcomes evil.